Hello everyone, my name is Sniping is Fun, and I welcome you back to the next Your List result video. I just recently recorded, and hopefully it will upload before this video, your top 8 worst Pokemon generations. If you guys remember, months ago I asked all of you on YouTube, I did the same thing to Facebook and friends and other parts of the internet and whatnot, for what they thought were the best Pokemon generation and the worst Pokemon generation. So I just tallied that up, and if you want to see the results for what people voted 8 through 1 for worst Pokemon generations, say you can go click on that video right after this or before you watch this one, whatever order you want to watch it in. I don't really care. You can do whatever you want. It's up to you, because the results won't change the other one. It's just, there you go. But you do you. But this right here is going to be the top 8 best Pokemon generations. These are going to be the 8 generations from the worst best to the best of the best that fans of Pokemon, Nintendo gamers, other gamers, whoever the hell voted in these lists that I asked on YouTube and Facebook and whatnot, voted for and chose. So without further ado, so this video doesn't go on forever, let's do this to count the top 8 as of your votes best Pokemon generations. And at 8th place, with one vote, one person voted this as the best Pokemon generation. And if you go back to my worst generations list and see how many votes this generation got for worst, it coincides with what a lot of gamers, consider to be. And it's weird because this is going to be, and I'm going to spoil it for you, the best. If this was the number one worst generation, which since it was both the worst of the best and the best of the worst, universally a lot of fans don't like this generation. And that's Generation 7, Sun and Moon, Ultra Sun and Moon. And before I get any further, I mentioned this in the last video. I mentioned this when I asked people to do the survey for this months ago on YouTube and Facebook. This is based off of the initial releases of the games. No remakes, no nothing, because not all these generations have gotten remakes yet. I told people to only consider the original releases of the games, the original releases of the generations. And I consider generations to be that region of that time. So I, like for example, I consider Generation 3 to be Hoenn, not Kanto remakes, because I consider that to be Generation 1 remakes. I know technically the Kanto remakes, the Johto remakes are Generation 3, technically by the Pokemon Company and Nintendo and Game Freak and all that stuff, and a lot of fans, but I personally don't see that. I just see them as Gen 1 remakes, and Gen 3 is Hoenn, so Alpha, Sapphire, and Emerald. Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald. That's how I see it. So, but yeah, Generation 7, Sun and Moon, Ultra Sun and Moon, sequels count though, I think. Alola. What a lot of people said on the worst generation list was that they didn't really like the Pokemon, they didn't really like the region, they didn't like total change of a story, because a lot of people wanted something different than just Gym Leader, Elite Four, and I think a lot of people appreciate that, but the format of doing all the Alola, captains and stuff like that, just, I don't know, a lot of people didn't really like that. I don't know, like a lot of people didn't really like that, and it was a lot of, it was slow, it was definitely slow, and if you didn't have a new 3DS, the game was slower. I had a trouble time getting online, but what some of the best parts of the generation were definitely, I liked some of the Pokemon. I liked the starters. The starters were some of my favorites of recent Pokemon generations. A lot of people said that. A lot of people liked the original unique difference too, but like I said, the negative, a lot of people voted as negative because of the same friggin' thing. So tomato, there's always a pro and con to everything. But yeah, a lot of people did say they liked the different approach to it. They liked definitely Professor Kukui was probably one of the more best recent professors. I liked him a lot, especially in the anime. A lot of music, some of the captains, some of the characters. It's just interesting. When it comes to voting, what people said for this, one person voted this as the best generation of all time. And it has its moments. I liked Sun and Moon, but I definitely would say, yeah, it's one of the weaker generations, and it also being voted the top of the worst universally by a lot of Pokemon and Nintendo and other gamers. Yeah, Generation 7 Sun and Moon are often seen as some of the weakest generation Pokemon games in general. And yeah, I can understand why. But like I said, it does have its moments, and I could see why like I said, if I asked more people, this probably would have got more votes, and it might have been higher up on the list. I only asked a select few couple groups on Facebook, a select you guys on YouTube with my video, and some other people. I only asked a small group of people, but if I ask a large group of people, Generation 7 might have got more votes in the best and might have been higher up than, 8th place. Well, so it's all about who you ask too, but generally I have seen Generation 7 get a lot of negative flack for what it did and didn't do and didn't have, but it was enjoyable, and I could see why at least someone voted for it as best generation, because it did have some good music and good characters, the difference of the Alola captains versus gym leaders, interesting region to look at with Hawaii, Alola based off Hawaii and whatnot. It did visually look appealing, but it definitely didn't add as much to the franchise as a lot of other generations did, and I can see why it's at least considered the worst of the best. At 7th place with 2 votes, just barely beating out Generation 7. Oh god, I just spoiled it. Generation 6. X and Y. A lot of people liked the Mega Evolutions. That was definitely one of the best things people voted for in terms of why they liked Generation 6. It felt like it was an interesting region to look at based off, what was it, Paris, France? Or Italy? No, Paris, France. Paris, France. It had a visual approach that they liked. They loved the music. They liked it being like the first 3D Pokemon game, which was a start, even if it was very basic. As I mentioned in the negative list, one of the things I didn't really like about it, and I think a lot of people don't generally like about Generation 6, is it's so freaking basic. It's pretty much like Generations 1, 2, and 3 basic after they had such epic stories in 4 and 5. And then the team was kind of bland. Team Flare, I do know a lot of people like Lysandre. So just like me, a lot of people do like Lysandre. But Team Flare itself is kind of meh. So I can understand why it's lower on the best voted list, even though I think there are fans that certainly like it. And I still do love the generation. It's like I said in the last list, my video. It is the generation that I feel got me back into the Pokemon games, because during the DS generation, was a slow build of me out of the series before I came back into it through the 3DS and playing this, which 3DS kind of brought me back into a lot of different franchises from Nintendo and third parties and whatnot. So I can see why a lot of people voted for Generation 6 as like a low-end type of thing, but I also see why people like it too. Like, it has its positives. I think Mega Evolutions was definitely a very interesting, if a bit Digimon-esque style ripoff of for the Pokemon franchise, and a cool feature. But like, it's only can add so much, and the art style being the first 3D game, and Lysandre, character customization, all the doodads and everything in it. Yeah, I can understand why people like it, but I can understand why it's so low on this list. A lot of people didn't vote for it as some of the best Pokemon generations. And in 6th place, the other recent game, which goes to show you, because high up on the worst list were the 3 recent Pokemon generations, and they're on the low ends of this. So it does go to show you that a lot of Pokemon fans don't like recent Pokemon generations. So I'm obviously giving it away with 3 votes. Generation 8, Sword and Shield. A lot of people like it for being like the first home console hybrid handle, Switch. Cool characters. A lot of people love Marnie, Bede, and Hop. I really do. I love the concept of the gym leaders being more like a sports league over like in Europe, over the, in the United Kingdom, over in Great Britain, like how they love like their football, soccer and whatnot. A very sports heavy region where it's a very league based region, and it's like you're going through like a sports league, and I love that. That's definitely what I think a lot of people do love too. I personally really love that. And I love the gym leaders. Like, every single gym leader I loved so much. I loved Leon. I loved like the region and whatnot. The team, like Team Yell, is probably one of the weaker teams, but their leader is awesome. Marnie's brother is awesome. And like the rivals, and then the story, and then Hop. Hop is a pretty interesting rival. I have seen a lot of people vote Hop as one of the better rivals, not named Blue and Silver. So definitely, in terms of people don't really like the game that much, they consider, like I said, all those controversies that happened last year when Pokemon Sword and Shield was released, all the cut Pokemon, all the cut content, how Game Freak was acting to fans online despite them being assholes, so on and so forth. A lot of the reasons why people don't like this generation, which is also the reason why it's low with 3 votes. But a lot of people like certain elements of it. I think the DLC that they've added recently has been pretty cool, and some cool characterization, some cool characters, and cool Pokemon added. They've started bringing back more Pokemon with the DLCs, And like it's just like I think they're slowly coming around. I think Generation 8 is kind of like that slow build to what we're going to probably be getting with like Generations 9 and 10, which will be like Switch and Switch's successor and whatnot. It's the first on the home console, and there's definitely room for improvement, but I think there definitely is some good to it. And I did like the story. I love the characters. That's definitely one thing. Despite the gameplay still being kind of and it's still being super easy, I love the characters and I love the music, and that's definitely I can at least condone that it's definitely not the worst best generation. At 5th place, with 8 votes, is going to go to the original generation, Gen 1. A lot of people loved it for it being what started the franchise, even though a lot of games got better since then. It's what started the franchise for a lot of people, and a lot of them love it because of that. And they love the Pokemon, they love the region, Kanto and Giovanni and the Elite Four and all the like. Definitely, I would say Kanto's gym leaders are some of the most iconic of the franchise. Lieutenant Surge, Blaine, Misty, Brock, Erica, Giovanni, or if you're playing like Yellow Team Rocket, like Jesse and James and whatnot. Some of the most iconic and some of the most iconic music. The region is just iconic to travel through. Viridian City and all that town, Lavender Town and everything. And it's just like, it's a complete package that a lot of Pokemon fans love from the start. And it's what got them into the games. Even though it's gotten much better since then, a lot of people consider it the best Pokemon generation because it's what started it all. And I could kind of see why, despite it being aged a lot and the game is a little bit outdated now, and Fire Red and Leaf Green improved it so much. Generation 1, in terms of like the actual Red, Blue, Yellow, they're still good games, and you can still play them on 3DS now, at least Red and Blue. So I can understand why 8 votes, a lot of people out there, and like I said with the Generation 7 thing, the votes with, depending on if I ask more people, some of these lists might be a little bit different because some people might have voted for other Pokemon generations for best or worst. But I can definitely see why a lot of people love Generation 1. They consider it the best generation of all time, but only 8 people voted for it, so landed it right in 5th place. It's kind of in the middle. Like, a lot of people love it, and a lot of people don't like it so much, so it's like, it can be the best generation, but it can't be for some fans. It's all opinionated anyway, so there you go. But I love Generation 1, and I can see why a lot of people voted for it as the best generation, because it is what started it all. And then we're in the top 4, and there's only 4 generations left. And the 4th place is going to go to one of my favorite generations of all time, with 15 votes, Gen 3. Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald. A lot of people love those games. I definitely love those games a lot because at that time I was still like heavily playing Pokemon with my friends and my cousin and whatnot, getting the link cables up on like Generation 2 and Generation 3. I didn't do that so much with Generation 1, and I really didn't do that whole lot after Generation 3. I did that with my one friend a little bit in Generation 4, which is probably the reason why I kind of fell out of the Pokemon like games for a short while in Generations 4 and 5, because not being able to play with so many other people, and then Generation 6, 7, 8 online, and co-workers and people from school and whatnot when I was in college. So yeah, that's what got me like that slow period. It was definitely a group activity, like hanging out with other people and doing the link cables. I loved a lot of the Pokemon that they added, even though they took away a lot of Pokemon from Kanto and Johto. There were still a lot of cool Pokemon they added. I love all 3 starters. See, for me, the first 3 regions, I love all 3 starters. And then they get into the DS generation, and I just don't really like them those much. There's certain Pokemon, and there's only 1 or 2 I pick from each generation. And then they kind of pick it up again with Generation 6, 7, 8, which I like all the starters. So there you go. DS generation was a low period for me. But I love the mystery bases. I loved all the region. Like I kind of thought the water idea was kind of cool, if a bit overplayed, because obviously the concept of land versus water, aqua versus magma. Some cool rival characters, it was just a cool game overall, and I loved it a lot. The music was good, and just a lot of the stuff you could do. Like contests were a fun thing to do. The contests a lot, and just like the group activities, the berry making and whatnot, you could do with a lot of people. And like I said, I played with my friends and my cousin a lot, so it was definitely the generation I played a heck of a lot with other people. So I could see why people vote for 15 votes vote Generation 3. It just has a lot going for it, and it was definitely, I think, a step in the right direction, even though it wasn't 100% in the right direction. It did a couple of things, steps backward too. In 3rd place, with 20 votes, goes to Generation 5. See, a lot of people like Generation 5. A lot of people like Team Plasma. A lot of people like Getsus, and especially N. A lot of people like some of the gym leaders. A lot of people like the rivals, especially, I think, in the first one, Black and White 1. But they like that one rival sort of in Black and White 2 as well, so it's kind of its own thing. It was also the first generation to get a direct sequel. So that was kind of cool, and a lot of people like that. Rather than getting a third version, they got a direct sequel storyline that takes place a couple years later. The region being the first outside of Japan was kind of cool. And a lot of people like the Pokemon, and a lot of people like the story. And like I said, Generation 5, I didn't play it as much as some other generations, but I can appreciate it for what it was. And there's certain elements, despite me not playing it a whole lot more than other generations, that I love about this generation a lot. So I can see why a lot of people view it as one of the best Pokemon generations of all time. And I would love to see them do something like that again, like that more in-depth story, which it's come and went since then. They've been more simple, but I think they're kind of getting in the right direction because there was that story. I think the story in Sword and Shield is in the right direction. They just need to kind of capitalize on it, improve upon it, and work on it for generations 9, 10, 11, or whatever. So yeah, there's that. In second place, voted with 22 votes for the second best Pokemon generation, as voted by all of you online, is Generation 4, Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum. This is a very beloved generation, and I don't personally have this ideal in my head because I like Gen 4 to some extent, but it's also, in my opinion, for me, one of my least liked generations. I like Generations 3 a lot more than this. I like Generation 5 a little bit more than this, at least from a concept. Like I said, in the worst list, I play Generation 4 more than Generation 5, but I like the idea of Generation 5 a lot more than Generation 4. But Gen 4 brought a lot of the EV training, a lot of the Pokemon people like. It might have started off slow with Platinum, anyway, Diamond and Pearl, but Platinum improved upon that a lot. For me personally, I wouldn't vote it this high. I wouldn't vote it as one of the best Pokemon generations of all time. But for a lot of the Pokemon fan base, for a lot of gamers out there, they do consider Generation 4 to be one of the best Pokemon generations, and they're heavily, wanting the remakes of Generation 4. And while I'm not the biggest fan of Generation 4, I am looking forward to Generation 4 remakes as well. I look forward to all the remakes. I look forward to Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire, Heart Gold, Soul Silver, Red, Red and Leaf Green. I would look forward to Unova remakes and Kalos remakes and whatnot too, and new regions and everything. It's like Pokemon's Pokemon, but it's like I can see why Generation 4 was voted one of the highest generations, for the best generation of all time. And it did include a lot of good stuff in it. I will at least be able to admit that. Which obviously means with number 1, we know exactly what was voted the best generation of all time. With 27 votes goes to Gen 2, Gold, Silver, and Crystal. Oh God, a lot of people love this generation. It's definitely one of my favorite generations of all time alongside Generations 3. Being able to travel to Kanto afterwards, so you get 2 games in 1, was huge. You had Pokemon from Generation 1 from Kanto in the Johto Pokemon, so you had a crap ton of Pokemon to work with. It improved on all the stuff. It had the berries, all the different features, all the different things. I think the EV train started barely in that. Different types of Pokeballs and all the different characters you met, just the lore, the world building. It was so good. And it's like, I know why a lot of people like Gen 2. I remember when I started playing Gen 2. Easily remember. How being so invested, being in that Pokemon boom period, the late 90s, early 2000s, and loving Generation 2 a lot. A lot of Pokemon, a lot of the starters and the gym leaders and the Elite Four and just everything about it. I can understand why 27 people voted for it as the best Pokemon generation of all time. With that being said, let's see the final results for the top 8. Your top 8, what you voted for as the best Pokemon generations of all time. And 8th place with Gen 7 with 1 vote. In 7th place, Gen 6 with 2 votes. In 6th place, Gen 8 with 3 votes. In 5th place, Generation 1 with 8 votes. In 4th place, Generation 3 with 15 votes. In 3rd place, Generation 5 with 20 votes. In 2nd place, Generation 4 with 22 votes. And Gen 2 is 1st place with 27 votes. So with that being said, put in the comment section below. What do you guys think? Do you guys agree with this list? Do you guys think this is the order for the best Pokemon generations of all time? Do you consider Generation 2 to be the best Pokemon generation of all time? Put in the comments down below. Discuss it down there. My name is Fun. Peace. Please subscribe if you want to. Have a lovely day. I'll see you later in the next video. Bye, everyone.